to go through working examples of queries today at the same time. And from there, hopefully build up your ability to have a play about with another database that I've created for you this afternoon. Best Christmas present in the world, folks. You don't just get one database from me, you're getting two databases from me today. You could have got an iPhone instead, but... So, what you should hopefully see is it's completely blank, apart from 3 tables. I've put all the relationships in, folks. You are not looking at normalization, you're not looking at relationships today, and you are not looking at verification or validation within the building or construction of this database. What we are going to be doing instead is we are going to look at a variety of different queries of how we can construct them. And what I really want to focus on today is what questions are we actually answering here? Can I just have an X in chat if you have managed to download that? Actually, no, scratch that before people go. X in chat if you've not managed to download it yet. I think that'll be the easier way. No problem, Devon. Can I just ask you to obviously download that database ready to use today? Listen, John, if you can just support Aaron, please. Aaron, all it should be is the 3 dots, the ellipses as we call it, and just click the download button, please. So, a little bit of a chat this morning about actual query construction, followed by just giving you the ability, like John did last week with your forms and your construction of your forms. I'm going to let you have a play with queries once we've gone through some today, yeah? I'm not going to release my class notebook just yet. However, I've got a full class notebook that reiterates what I'm going to go through with you this morning as a bit of a reference document. But obviously that's going to be supported by this video as well. Like 3 things at once. Wow. Right. All good in everybody's rooms. John, Tommy, Scott, just give me a thumbs up, please. Yay. Yay. And yay. Right, let's go then. So the first thing I want to cover is John spoke to you last week about the easy way and the hard way, or the middle way, yes? Now, to start off with the easy way, if we come onto the database and we look towards the Create tab on our ribbon, currently highlighted on your screens via me, we've got the query function. And we can create either using a wizard or a design. I'm going to be honest, folks, the easy way is the wizard, but it's pointless. Okay, and I'll explain and show you that. I don't want you to follow along with this one because I really don't want you to be using this wizard. When you choose the wizard, you get 4 options. The first one is looking at a simple query. The second is a crosstab, which we will cover later on, but everything I've seen so far does not require you to do a crosstab query. And then we've got the final 2, which looks at duplicates and also unmatched data. So if you have got to construct a query to find duplicate data or duplicate entries within your database, the easy way, third option, is the best way to do this. If you're trying to find gaps in your database, remember that ticketing system that you're going to have another look at today had gaps for people who hadn't bought the tickets. That allows us to check that information. The 2 at the top, crosstab, allows you to essentially create a table with information on the left and information going across the top, and essentially calculate where entries are on a monthly, yearly, daily, or hourly basis. Not something we're going to look at straight away today. But if we look at the simple query wizard, which is what you're all thinking, oh, Aaron, if I click that simple query wizard, it's going to just tell me that I can create a query, right? No. What the simple query does is it allows you to pick the table you would like to query. It will then allow you to choose the relevant field. So let's take games, for instance, and throw all the selected fields across. If I hit next from there, it then says, what do you want to show it as? And in my case, I'm just going to show the details. Games query, and we can open it. Great. The wizard has allowed me to create a query that is the equivalent of me just opening the table. I feel blessed. Thank you, Access. So this is why I'm saying the wizard, although it is the easy method, it's not going to show you any data. Yeah. So we ignore that one. The hard method, just to skip the middle method, which is where we're going to focus our efforts today. The hard method is constructing it via SQL. Okay, so generating your select from where commands and writing the query yourself. Now, from it, again, everything that me and the other tutors have looked at so far, there isn't a requirement for you to write your SQL statement straight off the bat. Okay, but we will still concentrate on that. Where we want to sit is the middle of the road, and this is where we've looked at before, folks. So again, on the create section, you can all click this one now. We're going to design a query. So not the wizard, the designer. Just a quick recap. We're going to have a couple of areas. I'm just going to close all of these down because I keep everything open because it's how I work, but you may not have these open. The aspects or the elements that you want to load up when you first see this blank screen, if they're not already open, is you want to access the add tables. So just underneath query design for my ratio, you'll see that on the ribbon, add tables with the little plus icon. All your tables will then appear on the right-hand side, as well as the previous queries that you've constructed, and you can add all of these tables if you so desire to. Now, again, because we built up the relationships, that will show the relationships between those database tables as well. We talk about testing and we talk about you checking that your database works. If your relationships aren't showing on there and you're trying to query them, you will not get the data if they are not linked. So adding tables is where we're going to start generating the queries from. The second is just picking the properties sheet with the show and hide menu on the right-hand side of that ribbon. What we now have access to is all different types of properties that we're going to be looking at and all the tables. However, the query is constructed down in this bottom section. So just to magnify in on that particular section, why did that close? Hey ho, me hearty. This is where we're going to construct our queries, folks. We've got a number of blank columns at this moment in time, and this is where we've constructed it previously. So again, nice little reminder. Any information, whether that be field entries or expressions or field names you want to generate yourself, will appear in this location. It's not gonna. Okay. The first thing I want to take us through is something quite important. I am going to briefly mention normalization because it's the core aspect of obviously a database. When we normalize data, we try and reduce the amount of duplicate entries, don't we? So if I've got 3 customers with all the same names, etc., it's the same person, then I want to obviously build my tables to only just have 1 entry for that person. That's an obvious. But as the relations build up with a one-to-many relationships, everybody in this room, when you place an Amazon order, for instance, you just can't place 1 Amazon order. You have the ability to place multiple, yes? So in my database, although I only have 1 entry for you as a customer through normalization, you may appear in my database for orders several times, which is great. Now, if I want to only show a particular amount of information, let's fire one up, for instance. So grab that, we'll throw title on there. So I'm just double clicking that if it will work, thank you. And I'm also going to go for publisher here. So just putting title and publisher on at this moment in time, folks, and you see what I mean.
Aaron?
Hello?
Can I just go back a stage? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
And it's not anything about your delivery is absolutely spot on. But one of the things that I've written on the board in here, and I've not had a chance to speak to these guys about it yet, is why are we doing queries? Now, I know Aaron's talked about this before. I know he's mentioned this before. I know he's covered it. And it's about what business question are you trying to answer? Now, I've written on the board in here, what question are you trying to answer? I think we all understand the purpose of tables. Tables are there to store data, yeah? Normalization is to split them up into relevant tables. Forms allow us to see and to enter data. Reports allow us to display it, but what's the point of a query? Well, the point of a query is to pull, as Aaron's just been talking about there, data from across the different tables that's related to each other in order to answer a specific question. In order to answer a specific question. And that's what Aaron's going to get to in this session. But the reason we're doing this is to answer that question, to pull that data out. So we don't have to go through record by record by record. So you all do this all the time. When you type into Amazon a particular product, it queries the product database and gives you the results that are relevant. Yes? You do this when you're searching for a show on YouTube or on Netflix or Disney Plus, etc. You are querying, you are asking a question for a specific product. Now, in some cases, that's dead straightforward. We're only looking for one item. But in other cases, we may want to know which games are going to be released, which games fall into which genre. Yes, we want to give a client on that, because you may walk into a shop and say, what horror games have you got? Or what action games have you got? So before we get to this point, and in your assessment, now we're doing this the right way. We're teaching you how to build them. Yes, so when you come to answer those questions, you can do it. But I want you to hold in your mind that the reason we're doing this is to answer a specific question. And so when you're sat in your exam and you're thinking, I don't know how to build this query, think, what am I trying to answer? And where do I get the data, the key fields from, in order to answer that question? Does that make sense? Marvelous.
I think it might be useful for everyone to just chuck in the chat a question they might ask this data before we start. So for this database, what question might you ask? Just pop in the chat. How would you question it? What would you question it? Sorry, Aaron.
It's okay. You're just taking all my content. That's fine. But it is quite an obvious thing here, folks. Remember, look at what tables we've got when you're constructing these questions. We've got a console table that tells us the actual console name and when that console was released. We've got a genre that describes, obviously, the different types of genres out there. And then we've got all the games linked to those consoles and genres for developers, publishers, etc. So what would we ask them? Let's have a look at this. So, I'm trying not to blast through all of these. So we've got particular questions related to what consoles have specific games from Tyrus. Max, yeah, a particular publisher, Activision.
Brandon's got a really good question there.
Oh, 1 second, I am getting down there.
Sorry, Aaron, I wasn't trying to take your
No. I'm joking, mate, I'm joking. So what console did a game get the most sales on? Yeah, a really nice one there. Abigail, looking at the price of something. Yes, a really good one in terms of retail stores, isn't that, Abigail? You take a product to somebody and go, how much does this cost? They scan it, they check it on the tills and whatnot, and it returns to you the actual price of, in this case, a game, but obviously anything else on there.
Good. There's some really good questions in there, and what the best questions are the specific ones. There is what's called supervised data analysis. So how many games in total for a specific year? From Matty. Jack Beardsley asked, where has it gone? What games are published by Activision? We don't know the answer, but we know the question we're trying to answer. And once you know that, Aaron's going to, I'm hoping, going to take you through, I know he is, the way in which you build that up. But this is the starting point. What question am I trying to answer? And what Aaron's, I believe, going to do later on is these questions that are in here that you've asked, you are going to produce a query for later on. Yes, you're going to have that opportunity to play. But I want you to hold that in your mind. Sorry, Aaron, I've hijacked.
No, that's okay. One of the questions I do want to bring up on there is Kian's mentioned that he's noticed in the data that there are release dates in the year 3000. Is that something we as database developers or people who have entered this data need to check? So again, another method of ensuring the data is valid. There may be a game released in 3011. We don't know because we're not going to be alive in 3011 unless somebody comes up with a miraculous immortality potion. So, constructing this, the first thing I want to take you through, and like John's just said, is when we produce a query. So if we run this query, we have a number of publishers that are repeating. So we've got Activision that appears 3 times for the 007 games. We've got Namco on there, Little Orbit. We've got repeating data. Now, this is absolutely fine, dependent on the question that you are trying to ask. The question we've just asked here is, what game titles do we have and what publishers are we stocking? Yeah, nice and easy. But coming back to why we're looking at this at the moment.
Aaron, can you just give us 2 minutes? I want everybody to get that query built so they can follow where you're going. Is that all right?
That's no problem. I'll pop it back to the query side, John. I'll just mute in here whilst I check.
All good, Aaron. Thank you.
Marvellous. Right. So, just going back, recapping, when we run this query, we can see a number of titles now. 1 second. I think that should work. And that should work. So we've got a number of titles now against the publishers. We are seeing this data, looking down at the bottom, and we can see that we've got 12,805 titles with associated publishers. I can see that information. That is all the information. I've only took out 2 parts of a table. It's not great unless I'm looking for a full stock list of all of my game titles and publishers. But what I want to get to utilizing this type of query is within databases, once we've constructed it and once we've normalized it, please return back to the design view by clicking the top left-hand corner. And I want you to click in this grey, beige or dark grey color that you've got within the tables. What you should see, once you click in this grey area, the property sheet will change. And there's two values I want to go through on here, because this will completely redefine the way you question data. Well, not halfway down, around about 4 from the actual top of this list, you've got unique values and unique records. So you should be able to see that they are currently set to no. Although they sound very similar, a unique value and a unique record sound similar, they are completely different, folks. And changing these values to yes, which you can only change one to yes, the other will then turn to no, okay? You can't have them both set to true. A unique value would check whether or not, would output a singular entry of a particular field. Now, unfortunately for us, it's slightly different with the database that I've selected for you in this case. But to give you a nice example, we'll just fire up Paint. To give you a nice example of what we mean by unique value. Consider a database, a table currently, that has a title. I'm not going to put, obviously, the precursors of these on here. The first name, the surname, and we'll just have date of birth for now. Yeah, we're not going to go too intense with this one. When we look at this particular information, we're going to have, obviously, the titles of people. Just put me. We'll have John. John, I don't know your age, so I'm going to make it up. Sorry, your date of birth, so I'm going to make it up.
Very old.
I'm going to upset him here now. Let's go 82. It's fine.
Be very old, you tinker.
However, then we might have a Mrs. Joy Jennison, for instance. And again, I'm just going to pick a random date.
Be very, very careful here.
There we go, it's fine. So, when we start looking at this, a unique value from this data, if we just looked at the fields available, there are no unique entries here. Well, sorry, there's no ununique entries. So they are all unique. The surnames, again, are all unique. So again, we would have an output of all of these individuals. The field that doesn't have unique elements is our title field. It is our responsibility, because obviously we dictate our title when we actually buy things, whether we're Mr., Miss, Professor, Doctor, or whoever. So we would actually duplicate data inside this field. A unique value, instead of outputting Mr., Mr., Mrs., would only now output Mr. and Mrs. It removes the duplicate entries that are the same for that field. Now, I know this is a very basic example. We can't use this unique value inside of the current database that we're looking at effectively, because a lot of those entries are unique unless we're going to generate a query. So a unique value, like I say, looks at those particular elements itself. The unique record, though, looks at your primary key and checks to see if that is a unique row of a record. So this, if we're just going to look at doing this in, that would output, yeah, Mr. and Mrs. only, yeah? The unique record, if we activate that, would output all 3 rows. Yeah? Mr., Mr. and Mrs. because they have their own primary key. Just to check in all the classes. Does that make sense in my room? Thumbs up. Excellent. John, is that resounding okay in your room? Why am I not seeing your class? And just John. There we go. Dante, Drew, Annika, did you get that? Does that make sense? Fantastic. It's all right. The other one.
There are more people in my room.
That's all right. I can only see those ones.
Oh. There's Danny. Look,
Scott
there we go.
Smith, thumbs up from your room. Does that make sense? A unique value only outputs individual values, a record. Who's shaking their head at the back? Is that Charlotte shaking her head? Or Abby? I can't remember. It's worst case scenario with me having my glasses on and also it's a distance on camera. So a couple of thumbs up. Tommy, your room.
Oh no, it's stuck.
No, I could just see you, Tommy. You're passing it through the wrong camera.
What's happened there? What's that pointed at? It's fallen over. There we go.
Just a thumbs up from you, Tommy. Did they get it? Right.
Yeah.
Okay. You will learn more about this as we go on. So we will reaffirm.
Can't go anywhere else, but I can do this.
Goodness me. Right. Let's make a start then of actually querying this information more so than just looking at.
I need to fashion something over break.
John, do you know you're still on mic?
No, I didn't know. I was.
Just,
I got to admit, I was
before you randomly say
around with the camera. I was trying to make some sort of GoPro. That's what I was trying to do. Hey,
what did you want to do after break?
I was going to fashion some sort of GoPro out of the camera in the room. That was what I was trying to do.
Right.
Sorry.
That's no problem. Let's move on then. So let's get some actual data that is useful. So what I'd like you to do, folks, is just for the time being, delete the publisher. So just highlight that row, or sorry, column, and delete it. I want you to keep title in there because what we're going to do is we're going to look at the title of a game and we are going to start looking at the release date within specific information. So keep your title, double click your release date, and what you should now see is just those 2 fields. Can I bring that up ever so slightly to make that a little bit better?
Aaron, you're not expecting us to... Yeah, no, it's all right. No unique values, no unique rows set for this at the minute.
Currently, yes. No unique records either. Because what we're going to do, folks, is we want all the information at our disposal. If we run this query at this moment in time, brilliant. I've got the title and I have got a release date. But in terms of seeing that information, so if we look at what the business question is here, I am seeing what games have been released on what particular date, and I'm looking specifically at maybe what the most recent release games are for those titles. Because I want to stock, obviously, the games that are literally just come out. I don't really want to, within reason, stock older games, unless I'm a retro store in that particular case. What's the problem with this data, though? What do you see wrong with the current release data? Just throw it into chat. What's the problem with all of those release dates at this moment in time? Good. They're not in any particular order. Not organized. Yes. can be quite confusing. We've got an organized look on the title perspective. So we're starting at obviously 0, 007, and it would go all the way down to if there's any Z games themselves. Goes to the year 3914. That is correct, Rayhan. So you've easily identified there's some errors on that database, but you've had to scroll all the way down to the bottom or throughout that information. It is very unorthodox. The other problem we've got here is if we are looking at just release dates, currently it is ordered by title name, and we may not want that. So let's change it ever so slightly to get a better view of these game titles. So again, top left-hand corner, just click back into your design view, please. And what I would like you to do is we're going to look at what is called a singular sort, as well as, sorry, words aren't coming out today, as well as a multi-dimension sort as well. So we'll do a singular sort first, and then we'll do a multi-dimension sort as well, so you can see how the data changes. So I'll magnify for those people currently looking on screen. And you'll also see this, because we're not bothered about the actual relationships anymore. What we're bothered about is what we're searching for here. If we click in the sort row, we have the ability to sort by ascending values or descending values, or just say don't sort at all. Now, if we're looking for the games that are released at the most highest date, then what we want to look at really is a descending order for our release dates. Okay. So not really to teach you to suck eggs here, folks, but again, if we now look at that data, we can now see what is the most, I'd say, future released game that's going to actually appear. So in the year 39,014, there will be potentially a game called Chroma Squad come out, according to this data. Now, in that particular case, folks, I know the data is actually corrupt, which you've already identified, which is fantastic. Now that you've identified the data is corrupt, what would you do to fix this issue? Again, just put it into chat. Sonic the Hedgehog, tentative title. So what will we do? That's what I'm looking at right now. Filter out anything exceeding. Yes, good, Charlie. So we are or will construct a bit of a query later on. Which query to change the data? Yes, Kian, we could run an input or an update query, an amend query that would change that data because those dates might be wrong. Yes?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What would be, Kian's absolutely right. Yes, we could do that. But what's the danger from our side of things as data analysts at that point? If we just run it to update it, what do we update it to? What should it be? Yeah, but what year should it be? Depends on what? The game. Yes. So if we all just arbitrarily but run a update query to change that, do we change it to 2914? Do we change it to 2014? What do we change it to? If we're not sure, the first point of call, like Aaron said, is to filter it out because it's evidently erroneous data at this point. But we cannot, unless we know for certain, change it without first verifying what it should be changed to. Does that make sense? Right. Sorry, Aaron.
Not a problem. So yes, there's many different things that we can do with this data. But again, the problem that we've got here is that we've got an entire list of games that are going to be released in the future once we resolve these dates. But we've still got a huge amount of titles coming from there. So a good question to ask right now is, what is the most recent released game that we can stock? And we can run a singular filter to do that. Yeah, Brandon, the other thing that we could do is we could literally pay somebody as a data inputter to go through our database and change all 13,000 records. It's not as uncommon as you would think. So, just to show you a multi-dimension sort, you don't or shouldn't, in certain cases, depending on the question that you're asking, just run a singular dimension sort itself. So what I could do here is say, well, actually, I want to see in ascending title order, starting at 0 numeric values, all the way through to Z's, what are the most recent games coming out here? Okay. Now, if we run this query now, so I've gone sort ascending on the title, sort descending on the release date, we now have our data that is a little bit more easy to read. I can go through it in ascending title order and see those dates coming out. Now, you'll notice, for instance, the Quantum of Solace, there's multiple records for that, okay? There are multiple records because it will come out on different consoles. We've just not added that particular section. But what we can see here is actually, if we take Quantum of Solace, ooh, fantastic. They all, apart from this top one here, are going to be released on the 31st of October. And we may want to drill that information down a little bit more. So again, somebody recommends another field that would enhance this data, please. So how could I enhance this data to be more useful than just title and release date?
Aaron, I've got an answer in here.
Go for it.
Go on, Lewis.
Because they're on different consoles, and then some games could release at different times on different consoles.
Good. So you're recommending that I add consoles here, yes?
I think so. Yeah, I think so, because the question I asked was, why would the same game appear with the same release date in the database?
So I just want to cover one from Charlie. Now, Charlie, is a good method to probably consider the quantity, but that's a different question altogether. Because they're on different consoles, you may still have a quantity for those ones, yeah? So I understand the potential drive to look at quantity. Adding quantity, though, would answer a different question of what actual games have we got in store for those consoles. So just going to add consoles now. Coming to the console table, selecting product, and I'm going to drag that in between the two. So now we've got title, which is in ascending order. We've got the actual console product that we're going to be able to see. I'm not going to do a sort on that. And I've got a release date that is descending order. So now we run this and we can see you were quite right. We've got Sony PlayStation. I will open that up in a little bit, but we can see it's released first on the PlayStation, which is probably right, actually, because they have the rights for it to start off with. And then we have the Wii and the Xbox 360. Does anyone still play the Nintendo Wii? But there we go. We've now enhanced.
Yes.
Sorry, John. We've now enhanced our query question to say, what titles are there that are released either most recently or upcoming releases, and on what console are they being released on? That is a very valid query to generate, because now, as a business, I can honestly say, oh, pick one, we'll just throw down the thing when it stops, nobody will knows. There we go, Animal Crossing. Let's go with Happy Home Designers on the 3DS, released in 2015. If it was a number of years ago, maybe I want to be stocking that for the 3DS, okay? That's where my money's going to come from. So, in an attempt to just support you a little bit, what we're going to do is every query that we generate, folks, we're going to save as well with a valid name. So what I would like you to do is if you right click and just save this, QRY to dictate that it is a query, and this is our multi-sort.
Now I'm going to add to Aaron's point there, that prefix of QRY or FRM for forms or TBL for table is so important for your exam. We saw a couple of weeks ago in the mark scheme that without that prefix, you will lose marks. So Aaron highlighted in there, it's called QRY whatever, is an indication that you fully understood that this is a query. So please, please make sure you get in that habit.
Excellent. Right, so that's a very basic query, just so that we can pull a lot of data from that. And a query doesn't have to be amazingly complex or complicated in any way, shape or form. The question that you have in your mind is, what are you trying to actually demonstrate? What questions, like we said earlier, are you trying to answer? And if that provides the business with the data that they need, brilliant. Okay, so we're going to create another query here, folks. In fact, let's just close the queries down so it just doesn't get muddled. The next one we're going to do is we're going to start looking at, rather than just grouping data, is actually starting to calculate that data in some capacity. So I'm going to go through count first, which is nice and easy.
Just hold on, I'm going to stop the recording.
Oh, yeah.
So that section will be